a father. I'm so happy too, Tom. Let's be happy together from now on. Caught up in my own reasons for being at the hospital, I found myself fixated on a couple. The man was holding a newborn, watched over tenderly by the woman. It could have been an ordinary scene. If not for the fact that the man was my husband, Tom, and the woman was my sister, Lynn. I took a video from the shadows, quietly focusing the camera while suppressing my shaking hands and voice, and snapped a few photos too. Trembling with anger, I knew I couldn't afford to be discovered, so I kept silent. After finishing, I sent the evidence to certain people all at once. Meanwhile, my husband and sister continued to look at each other with happiness, completely unaware of my presence. Watching them from the shadows, I muttered, "Tom. Lynn. I'll make sure everyone celebrates this, just you wait." Leaving only a cold voice behind, I was surprised at my own calmness as I left the hospital. I was determined not to let them be happy. As soon as I made up my mind to do so again, my body stopped shaking. 3 days later. At around 3:30 p.m., Tom finally came home. Suppressing the urge to confront him immediately, I greeted him with an innocent face. "Welcome home, Tom. You must be tired, right?" "I'm home." "Yeah, this business trip was tough. It all happened so suddenly." He sighed heavily, taking off his tie and removing his slightly wrinkled black suit jacket. I took it and hung up as usual, not forgetting to flash him my best smile. "More importantly, I'm really sorry for bailing on our anniversary. I'll make it up to you. It's a special day for us after all." My husband looked remorseful, lying perfectly. I knew the truth, there was no business trip. He canceled our anniversary to meet my sister. He obviously didn't know I was aware of. Despite being fed up with his lies, I knew I needed to bide my time for the sake of getting back at them properly. "It's okay. You were working, after all. You're working hard for our family. I won't complain. Besides, standing around won't get you rested. Dinner's ready, so come on in." I was quite impressed with my own acting, treating him as if nothing was wrong. Completely fooled, he relaxed and followed me into the living room, showing a relieved smile. When the door opened, my husband, Tom, let out a whoa, which almost made me laugh because it was exactly the reaction I expected. It was no surprise he was shocked. The room was so packed with people you couldn't even see the floor. There were about 30 people in total. The moment Tom opened the door, all eyes were on him. "Tom, you're back. We've been waiting for you. Dad, Mom, aunts, and uncles. What's going on here? Come on, don't just stand there. Find a place to sit." The 30 people gathered were Tom's relatives. Though everyone was silent as if at a wake, they all stared at him. Tom swallowed hard in this strange atmosphere. I forced my bewildered husband to sit and made him join the circle of relatives. "Thank you all for waiting so long. My husband Tom has finally returned from his business trip. We were supposed to celebrate our anniversary yesterday, but a sudden work trip came up for him. However, I have no complaints because work comes first. Tom is always so dedicated to his job, and I respect that about him." Even as I greeted the relatives, Tom still looked at me with a puzzled expression. As you all know, Tom works for the construction company run by his father and is making great strides as his successor. Despite his busy schedule, his continuous effort is truly admirable. However, he does have one concern. The relatives remained silent, hanging on my every word. With the compliments, Tom finally began to relax and listen. Like his father chose him as a successor, there will come a time when we have to think about who will take over from Tom. Unfortunately, we do not have any children. I am infertile. Ah. Sympathetic murmurs rose. I smiled at the relatives, acknowledging their concern. Fortunately, Tom has been very supportive of fertility treatments. I wanted to give him a child of our own more than anything, so I immediately started going to a fertility clinic. But what I actually found there was an unbelievable betrayal. The smile faded from my face. I looked at Tom with a cold gaze, and he looked back, confused. Sarah, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Did I do something? Tom, you weren't really on a business trip, were you? You went to the hospital, right? Near my sister's house, in Sacramento. Mentioning the specific hospital seemed to change his complexion instantly. While I thought how fake his "what did I do" sounded, pointing out the truth made him quickly respond. What are you talking about? I was on a business trip. I told you before I left, to our client in Arizona. So, Arizona. Just to clarify, you were in Arizona from the first day of your 3-night, 4-day trip, right? That's right. I took an early plane and just got back. Thank you for confirming. Then, what's this photo about? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I took 3 days ago. It was of him and my sister Lynn, cuddling up close with a newborn. Tom recoiled in shock, but quickly tried to compose himself for excuse time. This must be someone who looks like me. I was definitely on a business trip. I've been working hard to earn even a little more to support Sarah's fertility treatments. It's cruel to doubt a man who's been working his tail off. I might be a great actress, but my husband could be a leading man. He fluently laid out his non-existent innocence, appealing to the relatives that he was the victim. Tom has always had a good front. If I didn't have solid evidence, I might have been moved by sentiment and forgiven him. How about we check out this video then? I played the evidence video from another folder. Tom's voice could be heard clearly, talking. Lynn, you did great with the birth. She's a cute girl, looks just like you. Now, I finally get to be a father. Sarah really is worthless, isn't she? Not being able to give me a child of my own. A woman who can't have kids is done for. What did she think we got married for? When the playback ended, Tom's face was as pale as a sick person's. Sweat was beginning to form on his forehead, clearly panicking. While thinking to myself that this is just the beginning, I patted Tom on the shoulder and explained cheerfully. Congratulations on the birth. Surprised to see all the relatives gathered all of a sudden? I called them to celebrate the arrival of the successor. Are you pleased? The relatives, led by the in-laws, all had furious expressions. The sweat on Tom's forehead increased, turning into cold sweat. My husband, who had been so high-minded in thinking I could do nothing, would never have dreamed that he would be trapped. He looked at me with a question mark over his head and pressed on. Why? How long have you known about us? Well, if I have to say, I've been suspicious of you since the beginning of our marriage. You were very kind during our dating period, but after we got married, you started to have more secrets. You were always clutching your phone, even at home. Suddenly, you had more overtime and weekend work. I've been suspicious early on. But at first, there was still some consideration for me. So I didn't confront you or go as far as to investigate. I really loved you, Sarah, though. Yeah, let's just go with that. But any bit of consideration you had vanished the moment you found out I was infertile. That's when I was sure you were cheating. So, when you said you were going on a business trip and left the house, I followed you to the hospital. I had long realized you and Lynn were in a deep relationship. As I finished explaining the sequence of events, Tom was shaking with anger. Apparently done with acting. It's your fault for not being able to have children. He muttered under his breath. The relatives opened their eyes wide in disbelief, bracing themselves against Tom's words. Just like Sarah said, I wanted a son to inherit the business. It's a natural thought for someone in my position. But the wife who's crucial to that can't have children. What choice did I have but to find someone else? Why did it have to be Lynn? If it had been someone I didn't know, maybe I wouldn't have been so resentful. Lynn lived alone and had been estranged from Sarah for a long time. She knew I was married, making it easy to explain the situation quickly. She was the perfect affair partner. Unlike you, she had a nice body. Tom played the victim, blaming me and shamelessly putting me down. I had reached my limit, but even more so, my father-in-law punched the wall with his fist. The impact was so strong, it felt like the house could shake, and Tom's shoulders jerked. "What are you doing, hurting Sarah without apologizing for what you've done? I'm ashamed of having touted you as an excellent successor. It seems I made a mistake in raising you. I'm going to remove you as my successor." "What? But I did it thinking of the company's future. Please, have mercy." Silence. If you can't even protect the closest person to you, your wife, how can you protect the company? A CEO must bear the future of many people. Don't underestimate management. At my father-in-law's words, Tom hung his head and bit his lower lip. He showed no remorse towards my complaints, but was completely defeated by his father's words. In the end, Tom had always taken me lightly. There's no way two unequal people could continue a married life. I sighed inwardly. I managed to get Tom to admit to his affair, and that's enough for today. Talking to you alone won't solve this mess. We'll discuss this again after Lynn is discharged from the hospital. All the relatives turned their eyes to Tom. Their looks were as cold as ice. Tom nodded silently at my words. For a while, I would be living alone at our house, waiting for the day we could talk. I really wanted to resolve the issue as soon as my sister Lynn got discharged from the hospital, but going out with a newborn wasn't possible. Though the baby was born from Tom and Lynn's affair, the baby wasn't to blame, so I decided to wait a bit until things settled down. As for Tom, he's been living with his parents-in-law. He must be feeling like he's sitting on pins and needles. I keep getting nagging messages from him saying, "Do something about it." I haven't replied even once because it's not my problem. 3 months passed, and I invited my sister and Tom, along with my parents-in-law, back to our house. The baby seemed to have a firmer neck, looking quite stable. Lynn appeared a bit more composed, so I thought we could have a proper conversation now. I started by explaining to Lynn what we had discussed at my house last time. Just to summarize the situation, everyone here, including Dad and Mom-in-law, knows about you and Tom having an affair. So, no need for lies or excuses. Knowing that he was my husband, why did you decide to have an affair with Tom? I want you to tell me that. I heard from Tom, but it seems you really know everything. Then, there's no need for me to say anything, is there? Lynn, please answer seriously. It's your fault for not being able to have Tom's child. You just lounge around all day as a housewife, being supported by your husband. And yet, you can't fulfill your husband's desire. Isn't your existence pointless? Not contributing to society either through work or raising children, you're just a useless being. Lynn laughed at me mockingly. Yes, this is the kind of person she is. Remembering the past, I started to feel sick. Actually, our parents died when I was very young. So, my older sister Lynn was like a parent to me, but even back then, she would frequently belittle me. A crybaby, useless, a leech. Even as an adult, I haven't forgotten those words. Lynn twisted her face in ugliness and spoke to me as if spitting out. After all I've done to raise you, you forget my kindness and blame me? I was just fulfilling Tom's wish. It's your fault for being useless. I am grateful for you raising me. But Lynn, you started to make use of me, didn't you? That's why we haven't been in touch lately. I don't think it's right to keep pushing your favors on me. I sacrificed my time for you, didn't I? Asking for a little favor in return should be okay. It seems she has no intention of reflecting on exploiting me. Indeed, I understand that she spent her valuable time taking care of me. But just because I was in middle school, leaving all the household chores to me, making me prepare her lunches, give massages, and order me around like a slave seemed a bit much. After graduating high school, I left home as if I was fleeing. As my sister and I were arguing, my mother-in-law raised her hand to speak. May I say something? We might not understand everything about your past, but your affair with our son is a separate issue, isn't it? That's right. No matter how much you may have been indebted to her in the past, it is wrong to associate yourself with cheating, because it is sinful to begin with. What, you're Tom's parents, but you're taking Sarah's side, a stranger? I'm the one who gave birth to your grandchild, not Sarah. I should be thanked, not blamed. What are you saying? They were dumbfounded by my sister's selfishness. I think she genuinely doesn't have a sense of wrongdoing. Her self-centered reasoning continued. After all, it's just an affair, right? Why make such a big fuss? Since Sarah clearly had a fault this time, it's her fault for being cheated on. The sister's words seemed to encourage my husband, who had been lying face down for a long time, and before long he stood up straight and began to speak forcefully. That's right. If Sarah could have given me a successor, I wouldn't have had the affair in the first place. There's no reason to continue being a couple with Sarah. I'm divorcing you. I'll build a new family with Lynn and our child. At Tom's statement, my parents turned red with anger and lashed out at both of them. What nonsense are you spouting? Boldly marrying your mistress. How immoral can you be? I'm ashamed you're my son. If you're serious about divorcing Sarah and marrying Lynn, then you're no son of ours, a complete stranger. We won't recognize that child as our grandchild either. It's okay, I'll make Lynn and this child happy. Tom took the divorce papers out of his pocket and slammed it on the table with force. I was honestly surprised that Tom had prepared divorce papers. As it seemed, he was completely defiant. He had no intention of backing down, staring straight at me. My parents-in-law looked as if they were about to collapse. I'm serious. This divorce papers is the proof. I've already filled in my part, so you just submit it. Well, goodbye. Dad. Mom. Saying this, Tom left with Lynn and the child before the parents could stop him. My parents-in-law and I were left staring dumbfounded at the door through which the three of them had exited. I'm so sorry for our foolish son. I can't believe our child would do something so reckless. Please let us apologize. No, I'm sorry for my sister's actions. We all apologized to each other. Having a soap opera-like drama unfold within my own family is truly embarrassing, but I have no intention of just looking the other way. I won't let this end here. You two have acted against basic human decency, and I'll make sure you regret it. Sarah, if there's anything we can do, don't hesitate to ask. That's right, we're on your side. Feel free to lean on us anytime. The kindness of my in-laws deeply touched me, especially since I lost my parents at a young age. Afterward, I completed the unfinished divorce papers and submitted them to the office. It's strange how a single piece of paper can change family members back into strangers so easily. The divorce was finalized, but of course, there's still more to be done. I demanded alimony through a lawyer from my ex-husband. The cause of our divorce was his affair, and on top of that, he had a child with another woman. The lawyer agreed that this was a serious offense and decided to demand a high amount of $50,000. I have completely cut off my familial ties with my sister. We had been estranged to begin with, so it doesn't really affect me. The house where my sister lived alone is now inhabited by her, the baby, and my ex-husband as a family of 3. Since my sister and I had no contact, the fact that her partner used to be my husband is unknown to the neighbors, and they seem to be living quietly. One day, out of the blue, I received a barrage of calls from my sister like a demon unleashed. It was about 3 months after they eloped. Knowing the reason, I decided to answer the phone. Hello, Lynn, what's up all of a sudden? What do you mean, what's up? What's with those photos? What do you mean? It's exactly as you see. Don't joke with me. Why is Tom in pictures with women I don't know? As her yelling almost broke the phone, I switched to speaker mode. It can't be helped. Tom's affair wasn't just with you. You knew from the beginning that he was a nasty man, so it's not surprising that a second or third cheating partner showed up. That's ridiculous. Tom loves only me. Hearing her shrill voice, I couldn't stop laughing. This justifies sending her the evidence of my ex-husband's multiple affairs. Lynn, you're quite confident in yourself. But Tom has been involved with other women besides you from the start. How do you even know that? Of course, I hired a professional to gather evidence of the affair. I was surprised to find out there were multiple other women involved, too. It's beyond sadness, it's almost a level of resignation. As I laughed genuinely, I could hear Lynn muttering, "You're insane." If my head is insane for laughing, then the parties involved in the affair must be even more broken. They easily engaged in such immoral acts. Why? Despite having me, why did he involve himself with other women? It's obvious. He said it himself multiple times. He wanted a son. By being involved with multiple women simultaneously, the chances of pregnancy increased. And lucky you were the first to get pregnant. Though, it turned out to be a daughter, not a son. Nowadays, the gender doesn't really matter, does it? Lynn was screaming on the other side of the phone. Honestly, I wish she'd stop. It might burst my eardrum, but I suppose she might be sleep-deprived from childcare, so I decided to be patient. Thinking that I'm the more mentally mature one here actually feels refreshing. Why? Why didn't you tell me if you knew that Tom had others? Aren't I your sister? Is it okay for family to be deceived? Don't just play the family card when it suits you. You were the one who started exploiting me and then pushed me away, remember? And I paused, infusing my words with sarcasm. It's just an affair, right? It's the fault of the person who got cheated on, right? That's why I didn't tell you. Damn. You. I threw her own words back at her. Lynn was left speechless, and I mentally gave myself a high five. Then, taking a deep breath, I calmed myself down again. To truly cut ties with my sister, I couldn't do it with a turbulent heart. I intentionally smiled. Lynn, thank you again for raising me. No matter what terrible things you did, that fact won't disappear. What's with you all of a sudden? Turning so meek. But that's separate from the affair. No, it's precisely because I'm grateful that I can't forgive you. Take care, goodbye. No. Sarah. Ignoring my sister who seemed to have more to say, I hung up the phone. With that, it was finally over. I'll likely never see my sister again. The reason for the insulation was my ex-husband's infidelity, but since we had always been estranged, I guess it was bound to happen. Now, having lost a husband and a family, I truly became alone. Yet, my heart felt light. Afterward, my ex-husband and sister's relationship seemed to be deteriorating day by day. Their loud arguments could be heard even late at night, troubling the neighbors. Apparently, they've even received complaints, and my ex-husband and sister kept calling, blaming everything on me. But my in-laws were there to stop their rampage. Later, when I arranged a dinner to report something to my in-laws, I took the opportunity to express my gratitude. Looking back, Dad and Mom, you've always been on my side since the beginning of my marriage. Losing my parents early, I've come to think of you both as my real parents. Thank you for protecting me from my sister and Tom. We're glad to hear that. We think of you as a real daughter too. That's right. If there's anything, feel free to rely on us anytime. Thank you. Actually, there's something I wanted to tell you both. Feeling a bit shy, my words trailed off. But then I gathered my courage and continued. I've started seeing someone new. It's still early to say where it will lead, but I wanted you two to be the first to know. I'm moving forward. I'm okay now. Oh! Congratulations! There's nothing happier than hearing this. Today is the best day. My in-laws were genuinely happy for my happiness. Years later, I happily remarried and, after fertility treatment, was blessed with a child. The bright days I have now are all thanks to my in-laws' support. I'll never forget my gratitude towards them and will continue to cherish my child.